Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to our conversation. It's the 15th Sunday in Ordinary Time. If my numbers are correct, we keep going up week by week. And it's good to be here. We got a new person in the hot seat today, a fellow staff member. Excited to see you, Patti. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Yep.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
The office, it seems every week someone else goes away for a week or two or whatever.
Yeah.
So you were one of the first to take your vacation, and so that was a good little time for you?
Yeah, it was really nice. We went to Waskesiu and did some camping and tried to stay away from all those mosquitoes because it was
pretty
pretty
bad this
awful.
year?
Yeah,
Oh,
there's a lot of mosquitoes.
I'm going south this weekend, so
Ah.
I'll report back if it's
Let me
worse or
know
better.
how it is. Yeah.
I don't know. But Father Man, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I've actually today is the last day of my course. I know people watching don't know. I'm taking a master's degree in psychology, and I was doing a summer program, but today's the last day, and then I get the rest of the summer off.
Yay.
But I have a final exam tonight. I
Ah.
have not written an exam for like 10 years, so we will see how this goes.
And we're doing this right now?
Yeah. Maybe we
Doesn't
should help
believe
you
in
study
crayons,
instead.
I'll,
Taking his mind off of it?
think
Yeah.
I'm okay. We'll see. Find
So,
out tonight.
How does exams work in this world right now?
I've not done one before. Like the whole course is online, so it's kind of
Yeah.
online. But I don't know. Hopefully they might clear, like, is it open book or not? Like, am I allowed to look at my notes, or am I expected not to? Like,
It's a bit of a
It'd be
big
nice to
difference.
know.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Yeah, I'd say you're probably going to be able to look at your notes.
well, they haven't said not to, so I
Yeah,
assume. Like, I
I'd
don't want to
say
be
so.
cheating on it, but I think,
Yeah.
You probably have a time frame, so you can only do so much.
yeah, I think it's 100 minutes we have once we start it. That
Okay.
they did say.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be praying for you, and that's
Please,
exciting.
Thank you.
You'll get a little bit of a break over the next. When would your next one start? You get a while.
Like
now.
end of August, I think. We start
Okay.
up again. So yeah,
Good for
the rest
you.
of the summer off.
Well, that's
Nice.
exciting. Well, life is good. Creation is good. We dove into a little bit of
Yeah.
creation here with three kind of separate images, but I think they all fit. We're connected,
Sort of.
and we'll share our little thoughts in it. So, Father Matt, how about you dive us in here? Where
Sure.
do
Yeah.
we
So
go?
for this homily, I focused in on the second reading from St. Paul.
Mhm.
And as part of the challenge I find of homily writing is you have these three readings, four with the psalm. And often, like, they're all pretty amazing. And to understand, do I focus in on one? Do I try to tie them together? And I've been largely ignoring the second reading the last few weeks, even though it's been going through Romans, which is an amazing letter. And I was kind of feeling bad for not touching on it. So this week I just went all in on Romans. And Paul there was talking about this idea of the creation waiting for redemption. And I thought it's a chance to talk about that because I do find often when we think about heaven, we can tend to have a really limited view of what that is. And even popularly, we think of it as like souls on clouds playing harps, you know?
Yeah, I saw that.
But I was
in
trying
my-
to say, like, this reading calls us to go deeper than that. And the first thing maybe to open up here is the first point that I did make is even not looking not yet at heaven, but just like here on earth, the importance of our bodies and ourselves and being in person.
Mhm.
And especially how this COVID shutdown has really showed us the pain of not being there in person.
Mhm.
And also I think that the importance of being together in person. So if you guys have anything struck you guys from that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you used the example of the rats, right? And
Okay, why don't
from
we
that
explain that a
study.
bit more for our
Rats.
So we talked about
Right.
rats to talk about our bodies. No, but just that I guess it was an experiment, right? And researcher kind of taking different kind of conclusions of what was happening was, a rat having the option of water or one laced with heroin, right? And
Yeah.
but the difference of it being in solitary confinement as opposed to rat heaven or rat
Yeah.
paradise where they were all a bunch of them and could run around and going, and that they seemed, I guess the conclusion or he was noticing was that in the community setting, right, the addiction of the rats and leading to death was much less than in solitary
Yeah,
confinement.
but in solitary,
right?
they all died on heroin.
Exactly. So
Whereas
it
in
was
the
like,
rat paradise, they just played with rats and drank the normal water.
yeah,
basically.
and so maybe is that maybe a marker, a point to us of just how much we don't appreciate, and not even appreciate, literally need one another.
Yeah.
In that community, and yeah, I mean, I think we can all relate to that at some level. I was just saying in our pre-chat here, like I'm feeling I'm an extrovert to begin with, right? But I mean, I got family, I got kids to entertain and that kind of stuff, but not having normal kind of even like youth group or some of those hangings or visiting the schools for a couple months. Okay, we can do with that. We did some stuff online. You can still see some faces. And summer usually slows down, but now it's like, okay, it's going to be like 6 months of somewhat not at all in person kind of thing.
Yeah.
We're not even doing some of the summer trips, in the ways that we could have before. And I'm just even mentally just being like, ugh, like I'm missing it, and
Yeah.
you can get little hits of it, but the weight of that length of time,
Yeah.
I'm starting to like really notice. I don't know
Yeah.
about you, Patty.
I think, yeah, especially the way it hit us because it came on so fast. It was like I was at school one day and the next day school was done pretty
Yeah.
close. And you didn't have a chance to say goodbye to any of the kids. And I think a lot of teachers were feeling that pain too, you know.
Oh yeah.
They didn't get to say goodbye to the kids. The kids just left and that was it. They didn't see them. And so I think probably lots of people are feeling the same way, but it's a really hard disconnect from everybody else. Usually if you're going on a trip or something, you say goodbye and we'll see you later. But this was such a hard disconnect that even from your family, because I have a big family, and even from my family, I was separated. So it has been pretty tough, I think.
Yeah. And even here, I've noticed a couple times now helping with more of the daily streams for Mass and seeing some people, and like I've had the urge, I haven't seen you in so long, I want to give you a hug.
I know.
I was like, I will wave at you from 6 feet away.
Yeah, and talk from 6 feet away.
And it's just like almost like a
pain,
just a pain, an ache kind of inside that is very tangible. You know? And
and I think too, like, because part of our Catholic worship is so like tangible and sacramental, everything the lack there. And I was talking recently with some people who are involved at maybe United Church or Evangelical Church, and they haven't opened yet. And for them, they kind of say, well, like if we can't talk to each other and if we can't sing and we can do all that stuff online anyway, so there's not the same urgency, I guess, to worship together, which I found really interesting.
Yeah.
I think a big part of that is like the sacraments, right? And if we and our need as Catholics for the sacraments too.
That's so interesting. I literally thought of that during Mass this morning. It was the same thought. It just kind of struck me, and I was like, are some of the other churches not opening yet because singing, is one of the things they're kind of like holding back or asking us to? And I was like, wow, but worship is so critical to some of these communities. And it's like, well, if it's just the preaching or homily, like you can listen to that, you can live stream that or whatever. If you can't do the coffee and visiting or this, small groups, or if they're not doing some of that stuff, would be a real lacking. And I kind of double back of like, the presence of, you said that somewhere in here, of the need for a hug, but also of like, praying the spiritual communion prayer, which you offer on the screen is important, but I'll be honest, it's not the same as since I've been able to come back and receive our Lord, right? Like I used to always tell the kids what I love about the faith as a kid, and when I was maturing in faith, is I loved learning the meaning to all the signs, the bells and the whistles, I call it, right? Hearing the bells, smelling the incense. Like there's such a incarnational element to our faith, right? In the ritual, in how we worship.
And it's deeper. Like I find our faith is so much deeper than all the other ones, and I'm not cutting them down. This is what they have, but maybe they don't feel that deep connection like we do, and so maybe that's why they don't feel the need to open yet. Because they're getting it all online.
And what has it been for you, Patty, because you had some time not going to Mass and then coming back to Mass? Like, what's that?
It was very strange. It was really, really, again, I found it very disconnected, and I found it very hard to not be with my group of, fellow parishioners and being able to receive the sacraments. And it was very, I feel like it was cold. It was a very cold time, I feel like I was cold. Maybe it was cold then, but I still felt really cold, like inside too, because I was missing out on it.
And in some ways that I have a very different experience than everyone else, because I still had Mass every day, of course. But it was sometimes me and a camera, or me and a couple of people, And to me, like in Lent, somehow it didn't bother you as much, because like I'm okay with like things being kind of colder in Lent. But then once Easter hit, I thought, like, I don't know what to do with this anymore. I don't know how to handle the separation anymore.
I remember lots of people was it Father Darrell famously saying, this is the lentiest Lent that ever lented, or whatever he said.
But Easter should not be Lent.
But that was the challenge of like, how do we do Easter well? And I think as a family, we tried to do some things, but liturgically, I was like, it should be joyful. There should be trumpets. There should be,
and like the whole season, right? It's what really kind of
and it's
weighed on me.
50 days, like, and so it's hard. And I've seen some people, sharing as they've started to go back to Mass, and an encouragement of like, it was weird, or it was cold. And then when you sometimes chat to those people, the next thing they'll say, but it was still so good to be back. I've seen that in a few people that said it is odd, the Mass before, after, or during, whatever it is, the picking your side and register. Like it's not what we desire, but
Yeah.
it's
Right.
so much better than nothing, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it seemed, even I think in our own family, was the transition of like, is it worth it? And then once we're feeling safe and going, but you know, I think even my wife Sharon had shared to kind of said like, it was just nice. It was nice to get back into a little bit of the rhythm, even if I couldn't, you know, hug, you know, my niece or nephew at the time or whatever, but
Yeah.
just to wave, just to see a smiling face, just to get into the ritual moment of like getting in the van and driving in, and, you know, like you kind of the extended liturgy, as I kind of like to think about it, you know.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
You, I think we didn't even notice how much we were missing so much of that.
Oh, okay.
You know.
Yeah, I
until we
know.
started bringing
When it
back.
came to Easter for us, we tried all kinds of ways to get the season or get the feeling of Easter, and we watched the Pope's Mass, and watched our Mass, and then we wanted to see our family so bad, so we got in our car and we drove around. And so we drove to Regina, we drove to Yorkton, we drove to
Oh, wow.
Cudworth, all in one day.
It's like
Just
a pilgrimage.
yeah, it was like a pilgrimage, just so we could see, our family. And we
Yeah.
couldn't be close, we couldn't hug, and we couldn't, we had to spend the distance away from each
Yeah.
other, but still we could see each other. So yeah, it was.
We kind of did the same thing, but
do?
we didn't put nearly as many miles. We just did in Saskatoon, where we had made some Easter treats and just little visits, and we went. I think it was like 3 or 4 different houses.
Oh yeah.
We did a little driveway visit, and which is not like a thing we normally do on Easter, but we did that because we couldn't do all
Anything
the other
else.
stuff.
Yeah.
And it was so nice, and I think that ties back to like just your point there of we need each other in person and worship,
Yeah.
right? And your push, which I thought was kind of radical for you to share, of like that call about the hug, right? Like this person needed a hug. Like, was it that tangible to you? Like,
Oh yeah, it
Wow,
was
that's
very,
crazy.
very real. Yeah, it's like one of those, I think, just Holy Spirit moments. Like, this needs to happen.
Ah.
And maybe for people who aren't, just to remind what that is about. Yes, it was my first COVID ministry hug, my only one so far, actually, I will say. And it's been tough because I've done funerals and weddings, and to not embrace people at those times has been difficult too.
Mhm.
But this point, I was with this person at the deathbed of one that they loved, and we gave them the sacrament, and I just knew like this needs to happen.
Yeah.
And so,
Hmm.
and those are all like the questions we face all the time, right? In terms of the ministry that we do, and just in terms of life in general too. Like, we do want to keep each other safe, and still, that was one of those moments where I thought like this was the more important need at the time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And that's the tension, right? Of like, as the province is reopening, there was a family, with a high schooler and some kids who are involved in the youth ministry asking, like, is what's happening in the fall? Are we coming back? And I said, like, I'm planning, and the different tiers, because something needs to happen. Like, and we were doing some stuff. I was like, it has to. I said, I don't know if I can go in the school. Like, I don't know if we're going to be able to do alpha lunchtimes at BGM. Like, I don't know yet.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out like masses with the school. Some have scheduled masses, but like who knows, right? What we're able to do.
But
We'll
I
just
said,
do
like,
a lot of really little masses.
Yeah, I was like, we have to pitch
lot.
something because I don't know if it's a staff meeting. I don't know what he nicknamed it, but like coronaphobia, or I don't know what you said about it. Like,
Chronophobia.
there is this real thing of the psychological impact of this, and well, I guess in my work anyways, dealing with young people and the families of like, this is taking a toll.
I know.
And as church, of what can we do safely to still connect and grow? And I've personally been living in a tension of like, for a while, because we have some, a few health issues at home, that we were generally on the more conservative side, for most of this, in terms of just safety and being a little nervous, a little slow to re-engage. And I mean, we have to decide as each family and individual what's kind of safe, but also this point of like, okay, but like we need interaction too.
Yeah, and Patti too, because both of you were working from home for a time.
Mhm.
I'd be telling the internet.
Yeah.
So both of you are definitely like being very cautious.
Yeah.
Which is smart.
Well, I had, because I have my own health issues that I 3 years ago, but I still feel like I'm healthy, but I mean, you just never know, right? So you have to sort of be cautious, like you say, and be safe around others too. So you're not, I don't know. It's hard to know where the line is on that. That's for sure.
But I do think it was a call like that. We need to think about that and be creative. And I'll be honest, I don't know whose idea it was. And maybe, I don't know if I mentioned this in one of the previous ones. I really appreciated, and the first few weeks, I mean, we're still kind of in this mix, although feel like we've hit a plateau, or it's somewhat normal, not normal time here for a couple of weeks. But like those first few weeks, we were like figuring things out. There was end of Lent and how we're gonna do Easter Vigil and all this, man. Every day was new and a new experiment. But also us being at home, and then you were like, well, how do I know if you're working or connecting or that? And we started the staff coffee on Zoom.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And like that honestly made a huge difference
It did.
for me, you know. And that time it was like, okay, I know that I see some faces and there's a touch point.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I think that isolation might have gone out of control a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, I think you probably feel a little bit more disconnected from your workplace. And yeah, we were both working from home, and true, you don't really know exactly what we were doing. But when we connected with the coffee people, then I always felt like, this is my staff.
Yeah, we're still like the team is still there.
We're still the team.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then if we move this from, so that I think does show the importance of like how we need to be together, right? And that matters. And then so moving this on then to the idea of this new creation of heaven. And the big thing that strikes me on this is like nothing good that we have here will be lacking in heaven, right? And no part of who we are will be lacking in heaven. So part of who we are is bodily togetherness, in-personness. And so that's got to be part of what heaven's going to be for us as well.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, we were sharing before is that it's not just us, you know, and sometimes we go to something naturally, like that part of the creed, the resurrection of the body. That's always been a thing in kind of my adult faith that I've really clung to. You know, part of some of my just fighting some habitual sin in my history and whatever, and just needs of like, you know, like we are recreated, we are brand new, we are in our glorified selves, you know, and just the encounter of the risen Lord and those accounts have always really struck me. Not till the lacking of the idea of a new creation, but it wasn't always the part I kind of hung my hat on.
So the focus was more on like the body, our bodies being
our bodies,
resurrected.
and also the theology of the body, the connection, also the marital union and being connected with your loved ones and seeing that, like that's the piece that I've always kind of just really been excited about or just kind of thought about. And it's been a little bit of having children, but also you went into your Calvin Hobbes a little bit and the idea of, you know, creation of like, but no creation, all of creation. And even that, I forget the line from St. Paul, like it aches. You know,
I have some quotes I think on, this is the outline of my homily we're kind of glancing at here.
I forget the exact line, but I really like it.
The whole creation has been groaning in labor pains until now. Creation waits with eager longing. Creation itself will be set free from its bondage to decay. Like just those lines are worth pondering, I think.
Yeah.
They are. It's funny too that you say heaven is not our soul sitting on clouds playing harps, but like when I grew up, like nobody ever said that we'd have grass and trees and animals and everything would be there. It was just like, you'll go to heaven, everybody will go to heaven. And even if I think of it now, it's kind of like a haze with a bunch of bodies of people. I mean, that's kind of what I thought. But now when I think, but I mean, when I went to school and talked to kids, I never said, they'd say, well, do you think my cat's going to come to heaven with us? I'd be, oh yeah, of course. You know, it will. But inside my head, I was thinking, I don't know if it will. Maybe it will.
And some of this, of course, when we talk about heaven, it all gets very mysterious, right? Because this is like, we don't know what it's like to live outside of time, to live with no fear or sin or like, and what God has in store for us. But he gives us these hints. But one of these hints is new creation, like new heavens and new earth, all of that remade.
Yeah. And I think we were chatting a little bit before that it kind of stretched me to like, okay, maybe I need to appreciate, I always do notice I'm going to go camp this weekend. I'm excited to like get a bit of a break, get out of town. Like I love being in nature and going there, but it's not necessarily my every waking moment. I'm much more extrovert. I'm about relationship with individuals, but I also have a relationship to creation, you know, and in that context, and I probably don't live in that muscle enough, to be honest, you know. And you were saying it was like, well, that might be more of your lens, more than me, you know, as a default. Right, and it's good to know that we can have those different perspectives
and still be on the same level, really. Like maybe my emphasis is more on let's get creation healthy and good, and everybody will be happy, and you know, it filters down from there, and everybody will get along and all that jazz. But I mean, if you go from your level to, it'll still sort of end up in the same place. You know, we'll still all be in the same place, hopefully, you know, appreciating everything around us and having our creation in heaven as well.
Yeah. And so for you, Patti, though, in terms of like your way of living out the faith, this call as part of our faith to care for your creation is really like central to you, I guess.
It is central to me. Yeah. Like, I mean, I can name you all the things I do. That's good for creation. I don't know if that's hang my clothes on the line and don't use paper. But the problem was with this Corona thing, everywhere you went, they were giving you plastic bags and paper
I
takeout.
hate using plastic bags when I shop for groceries.
I know,
Yeah.
because so for me that was just like a pain in my heart every time I had to get a plastic bag, and they won't let you take your
Won't
other
let you
bags
bring your
there.
stuff in, I
Yeah,
noticed
I
you
think
so
some of them are now. Like,
Oh, are they?
I know independent, you can bring your own bags now. You
yeah,
have to bag it yourself
Yeah,
if you
that
do.
is
but-
really interesting to bring it up. Like, so I noticed that,
yeah. Even though
and it kind of bothered me, but it didn't maybe pain me as much as you.
Yeah,
right?
it
So
did
that perspective
pain
where
me.
you come from stuff, but I definitely noticed it. I was like, well, that's annoying because I can have these bags. Like, I don't want
yeah,
to do that. Where, part of it is like my intuition of like, okay, we recycle, we clean, we try to use low energy and that kind of stuff. But sometimes I think it also came maybe the frame of how I was raised with my kid is like out of duty. Like, this is the right
what you should do.
behavior.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I do the right things, but maybe it's not always out of love for creation. Like, it's been hard. And I think that's how just a little bit I was raised. And not that my parents hate creation or whatever, but they came at very much a duty mindset, a behavior. We do the right thing, and
Right.
right order brings it, like
Mhm.
it again filters that way, where it's like, no, I do it because I love the earth,
That's right.
because this is a gift from God.
And I think that's, like you say, it's the way you were raised too. And I think that's the way I was raised, because I was on the farm, and you appreciated everything, because you're in the nature all the time. And so I think my mom was more of a creation appreciation person. So that's, I think, where I got it from too.
And I think in where I'm at, like I love like the world, I love nature, I enjoy that, I care for it, but to me it's not as tied into my relationship with God as I think it should be. I guess maybe what I'm taking from this, but like I look at a great sunset and I think, oh, like that's great.
Yeah.
But I'm sometimes slow to like see God in that, I guess.
And I think that for me, because I was on the farm, I had there was lots of us kids, so you could check out sometimes. Nobody would know where you were. It was okay. But I had, I would go out and I would sit with the cats, and I really, like, even as a little kid, I appreciated nature, and I felt God in nature. Yeah, ever since I was little. So I think
And so it is a way of like you're living out your relationship with God
Yeah,
that's
through the
right.
creation that He gave us.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting is that I was essentially a city slicker kid, suburban kid. But every time I went to the mountains, went hiking, whatever, I loved it because it was like, oh, I'm breathing with a lung or but that I don't get a lot of. That is just backyard outdoors.
Right.
It's a different type of thing.
Yeah, but for you, it was a really amazing, great thing. And for me, it was, it's great. Just like every other day is great on earth, right?
It
I'm
was
not
much
saying
more
that,
integrated to your everyday
yeah,
life.
and for you, it's more a great thing.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it's just two different ways
that
of.
totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And it also, going back to, I love Calvin and Hobbes. I just have to shout that out. Like,
I
it's
was
one of my favorite.
I was very
comics of all
proud I
time.
found a way to work him into
Yeah.
it. I'm like,
If you mention
for
Calvin
10
Hobbes,
years I've been waiting.
Yeah.
to do this.
Garfield, or For Better for Worse is another one I really
yes.
love.
Yeah.
Far Side, like you got me hooked whenever you go in there. But there's so much goodness in Calvin and Hobbes and the wisdom of that, and it just that funny interaction. But it also made me just think of my son Ezra, who often like just points out things or has conversations that I was like, oh yeah, geez,
Never
like,
thought of that.
like accidental like wisdom.
Yeah.
And I was mentioning just this whole idea of like, oh, that animals are creation being with us in a new and glorious way, and that he was like crying about and mourning the loss of his bunny who died like 2 years ago.
Oh, darn.
But it comes back every so
Yeah.
often, and I don't know, maybe I don't know if it's called to be a vegetarian or vegan or whatever, but he often sometimes will like, he likes meat and will eat, and not dive deep into this, but he like mourns the animal when we say where it goes. It was interesting. But then I was like, well, you don't, like, when you go to forest, I was like, you don't have to have the chicken if you don't want it. He's like, no, I want the chicken.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be sad that I ate the
That's
chicken.
a
And,
tough one.
Like, but it's very interesting. So
It
I'm
is,
kind of,
yeah.
we just like, we accompanied the journey of him. But I was like, geez, even just that, like, it's interesting, right? That he like, he loves the gift of the animal. He still wants to eat the animal, right?
Yeah,
Right?
so far.
But that awareness is.
But
is
he's
interesting.
awareness that like, but he's sad about it.
Oh, I was in
It's
the
interesting.
classroom when I was in a classroom one day. Just like, I just got to tell you this because it's sort of in the same way. One of the I don't know what I was talking about. One of the little girls said from the front row said, "So when we eat meat, it's like animals that are ready to die, right? And we just get our meat from these animals ready to die." And I'm like, no, that's not how it is. I was like,
to be honest,
how much do I tell her?
Yeah.
She's like, oh,
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
so
And it's like, not to scandalize him. I mean, he's turning 6 and he
Yeah,
can make
right.
his decisions
He's
as
little.
he grows, But but even just being caught on that front of like, how often, I mean, I go all the time, kids teach us stuff, but
Yeah.
that he has this inherent connection to the gift.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe he has that more than me, right? And that's
Yeah,
a bit of a
maybe.
reminder of a gift.
And this kind of
Yeah.
reminds me of something I think is in Indigenous spirituality. I'm not as familiar with that as I should be, for sure. But I understand there's a sense of Thanksgiving to create, even like giving thanks to the animal that's given its life so you can eat.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's something really true about that.
Yeah, that's right.
I also kind of in our extended family is a guy who does a lot of hunting. And sometimes I think, and again, not to go into that, but I was just struck by this individual of like, oh, do hunters not appreciate the gift of this? And I was struck with a conversation with my first real hunter that I kind of knew in any real way. That was like, wow, he knows way more about the animal and loves the animal kind of more than me in a certain way. Like I was blown away that he's like, oh yeah, no, use the whole animal and this and that kind of thing. And it was just very insightful of a conversation that it's like, oh, I didn't realize.
Think about
the
that way
depth
before.
the connection that you kind of had. And I was like, I still don't know if I would ever go hunting, but like,
Yeah.
I still left that conversation pretty moved. I was like, oh, I don't know if I
Realized.
pondered, you
Yeah.
know? That's part of the reason when we moved, our backyard had a huge garden. We not gardeners at all. Well, I guess we were bad gardeners after a couple of years, but it was a pretty big decision in our family to do it because I was like, this is the chance maybe to live that muscle I haven't had, and for my kids to like we're
Learn.
gonna cultivate. You know, we're gonna care for God's creation.
Yeah.
Just even in our backyard.
It's
And-
amazing.
And it's awesome to like get that harvest.
Yeah,
Like,
it
I
is.
really connect. I was like, wow, the bounty of a harvest, and now hearing some of these
Amazing.
readings and the wheat and the corn, and then how
Yeah.
I'm gonna share it. It's been such a cool kind of awakening.
Jay,
I
that's
think
great.
of the spirituality of the family. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes me think of, I lived in the States for 9 years in my schooling, as I met some people there who grew their whole life, in like Los Angeles, never seen a real cow.
Wow.
Never seen a real live cow before. Like, what is wrong with you people? How do you go through your life and
That's
not see
pretty-
a cow?
I
But
guess-
it's
See a
just
cow
so
in
different,
urban
right?
LA compared
Yeah.
to
It's
Saskatchewan.
just very different life out here.
Yeah. Although they maybe didn't have the chance. Like I know going over to the West Side as a substitute teacher, I remember one time somebody saying to me, I've never been to the East Side of Saskatoon.
Really?
And I just thought,
Oh my goodness.
how can that be? But if you don't have the way or the
Yeah.
means to get there,
Yeah.
and maybe this person didn't have the way or the means to see
Yeah.
the cow. I don't know.
I
Interesting.
think that kind of led, not to jump us ahead, but
No, sure.
you know, you had these two challenges of having that living in view of eternity, and then the second one that struck me was don't dismiss this world. You said, our call to heaven, also a call to love well and worship well in the life we have. And thinking of that, you know, the East West Side, even sometimes, or I've gone on mission trips, and I said often the experience I've had is the lesson I need to live locally. Live
Right.
my mission locally, and how much need there still is in
Yes.
my backyard. How much, I mean, why we're trying to do a lot of camping this summer is like, okay, we can't travel and visit family out of province and do some of these different things totally.
Mhm.
But there's so much Saskatchewan we have yet to explore. There's so much of a gift from God's creation we haven't even seen. Right?
Yes.
To pick a few different lakes or to do that type of stuff. And I was struck by this idea. I was saying to Patti before we started of like, sometimes I notice some people who are so like, I don't know, you can correct me. Can we go so far in having a view of eternity that we're blind to the gift that is now?
Yeah.
Does this kind of make sense? Where sometimes it's like, we're so like, I am praying for the day that I go to heaven, right? And, you know, God, send that lightning bolt so I can get there now because
Yeah.
I'm so excited for it.
Yeah.
And there's like a devotion and a beauty to an understanding of that we're made for heaven that I'm not trying to discredit. But sometimes I was like, but are you missing the gift that is around you
Yes.
in your family, in nature, in whatever?
Yeah.
There's kind of like this tension.
Yeah, I see Patti kind of nodding along.
I do. I have seen this a couple times in my life. There, my grandma, my auntie died when she was 36, and she was a beautiful woman with 3 kids. And my grandma said, nearly every day I saw her, I didn't see her every day, but like every week or whatever, she'd say, I wish I could die and go to heaven so I could
Oh.
see my daughter, you know. So she missed her so much that, and the same thing happened with Manny's mom when her son died at 22. She checked out of the world for 10 years, honestly.
And missed a lot
so
of the beauty and joy that was in front of her.
she did, and
Yeah.
she had 2 younger children, and they feel like she sort of abandoned them, you know, because they were 15
Oh,
and 17.
that's
So I mean, it's true what you say.
And
You're
it's hard
missing.
because you can also understand it, especially when it comes out of an experience of mourning
Yeah.
and loss.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? Because there is an expectation, there is a hope.
Right.
That,
Right.
like there's a reason why it's hopeful and we desire it, right?
And there's also this is also sort of a criticism that like people who aren't Christian will sometimes give to Christians. I listen to a lot of like atheist Christian arguments podcasts. I find it
Oh yeah.
weird way to spend my time. I enjoy it. And I learn a lot from like both
Yeah.
sides, I find. But often that's one of the criticisms that atheists throw at Christians, but I think it's most of the time not accurate. Is that just like, well, you just care so much about heaven, you don't care about this world. But to that, I would say, like, look at all the soup kitchens and hospitals, and like, look at all like the good work Christians have done in the world. Like that fact disproves like the claim they're making. I do
Right.
believe. But also, like, the temptation is real, and there are times when, like, as Christians, we could easily fall into that of
True.
Yeah. And I think
not caring enough about this world and the people around it.
Yeah.
Because
so I see that more the trip line potentially in terms of your local experience, you know, how you're connecting or being present, you know, to the gift of community and what you have around you. But also the need as leaders in the church to also show that we do care.
Yeah.
Right. And so we have the soup kitchen of this, but like, and we saw it with leading with Pope Francis and Laudato Si and saying of like, but there's also a lot of us who are on the front lines of, you know, conservation and helping
Right.
and, you know, and all these different causes and, you know, ecological concerns, and to say like, we are in those frontiers as well.
Yeah.
You know, you've been doing this work for a long time and
Yeah.
inspiring people like me to get with it finally. And I've learned, and I'll even notice that like my care for creation has grown coming to Saskatchewan, to be honest. Because I mean, when I'm living in suburban Calgary, like you're disconnected.
True.
And I remember the first day when I used to work at the diocese and we're doing intentions, and they prayed for the farmers and the harvest, and I was like,
really?
"We do that?
That was
Like,
strange.
that's the thing, like,
That
no,
was
like
strange
people
for
are
you?
gonna hate me for that. But just like such
Wow.
a city, I was like, I get, yeah, let's pray for a good harvest. Like it was such a like. I've never prayed for
Is that
farmers
right, eh? And
until
I
like
think-
the first day I worked in Saskatchewan.
I
Now-
think
now
out
it's a
here we
standard.
always do. We always
Oh, yeah.
that's one of the things we always do in the spring and the fall.
Yeah.
For sure. Like it's nothing strange to me, anyways. I don't know.
oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But yeah, like call again about like to not dismiss this world.
Yeah.
And the part of that is to be aware of all different kinds of people in it and just the beauty of it, the bounty of it. Yeah, there's a lot there.
yeah, and I think maybe I don't know, as we're approaching maybe the end here, is checking in and challenge and a thankful. We had some comments from our episode last week that me and Father Matt were nervous about, and I just loved not just people watched it. It's not pride, but I was like just the engagement of a few comments. I was like, wow, like we're almost in the same room having a chat and a conversation, and just the real gift of this community. You know, as
good.
much
Yes.
as this homily was focused a little bit on creation and all this, and Ezra can hang out with his bunny in heaven, you know, one day. But just like, I left very grateful for St. Anne's
Mhm.
and and it's not just a building, right?
Yeah.
It's people, it's the smiling faces, it's
Yeah.
the opportunity to come and pray. And I hope that you know that we miss you.
Yeah.
And I've really been missing, and I love seeing faces, and yeah, you know, and whatever we can do together,
Mhm.
like I can't wait
Mhm.
to do more.
Get back together again. Yeah. I agree. I've been really missing everyone. I see the names, the people that are going to church. Like I looked at that today. I was looking through all the masses for the whole week because I wanted to see what was going on. 5:00 mass.
Oh, yeah.
But I looked at all the names of the people as I was scanning through, and I was like, "Oh yeah, Val. I haven't seen Val for so long."
Well, I look through and I smile every now and
Yeah,
then. Who's
because you
coming.
see everybody.
It's our new workflow.
yeah.
See names and smile. But,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean that's the challenge is to be together and be in this world, appreciate it. And any other parting shots of wisdom or challenges for us, Father Matt?
Oh, I think I've said enough. Not humbly. I guess for people watching, though, if we're talking about coming back, if there's anyone who happens to watch this who hasn't yet come back to Mass, like, I would love if you would give us a call and just let us know sort of how you're doing. Is it, are there things we could do to make it more comfortable for you? Are there questions you have? Like, we do really want to reach out to those who aren't yet at that point and see what can we do to facilitate that for you.
For sure.
Great.
And I mean, we're meeting every week, a little staff meeting. We check in on things. We desire to be one, you know, be together. And if there's obvious, simple things that we can solve, we're going to do it. We're a creative bunch.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to it. I've appreciated, again, just to sit down, and Patti for
Yeah.
jumping in. It was great to have you here.
Oh,
Thanks
thanks.
for chatting.
It was
Any
lots of fun.
Any closing words for us? Or for
Just watch
people
out.
watching?
Keep care of creation. It's beautiful. God loves it. Loves
Mhm.
you.
And VBS is next week. So you'll
VBS is
probably
next
see,
week. That's right. Yeah,
you'll
if you haven't
see-
signed up, sign up online.
Yeah, and we know it again the same way. We're not going to be together in the way that we kind of want, but hopefully we're trying to cook up a couple
Yeah.
little surprise way we can interact with you during that experience. But know that we're thinking of you, and feel free to like, comment, all that fun stuff. We love to hear from you as well. And otherwise, we'll see you next week. I'll be back. I'm going camping this week, so wish me luck. We have a 7-month baby sleeping in a
Oh
tent.
man, yeah.
If
It'll
it
be
torrentials
hard.
rain, we'll probably come home. But
Yeah.
we're gonna see how we do.
Awesome.
So
Great. Have a good time.
there you go.
Yeah.
Well, God bless, and we'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.